If you're familiar with ProGet, then you'll want to start using ProGet CLI tool Pgutil to manage your packages from the command line, automating and populating your ProGet instance with scripts. In this video, we're going to cover the following: installing Pgutil, adding your ProGet instance as a source, creating groups and adding members with scripting, automating creating feeds and uploading packages and assets, and configuring ProGet settings with Pgutil. So if you're using ProGet for package management, you might find it easier to do this from the command line and even want to set up or replicate entire instances via scripting. This could be done to configure ProGet feeds for a new project your teams are undertaking, test your instance on a new ProGet version before committing to an upgrade, or simply uploading many resource files without needing to do it all by hand. Pgutil, ProGet CLI tool, can be installed from the .NET CLI using .NET tool install Pgutil global, and it's used to manage your ProGet instance from the command line. So you can manage packages on your CI server with automation. So yeah, here's Pgutil, and if I run Pgutil, you can see all of the commands we can use here. And I'll add our ProGet instance as a source like this. So I'm just using the source URL and the API key. And naming this source default means that all commands will use this source. So now that's done, what I'm going to do is head into feeds. And here you can see all the feeds commands. So list, create, we can even modify our feed properties. So what I'm going to do is create a new NuGet feed like this, and I'm going to call it public NuGet, just so you can see how a Pgutil command actually works. And yeah, now that that's created, I'll show you that as well as managing feeds and projects in Pgutil, which is all stuff you can do in the UI, you can even manage your actual ProGet instance. So for example, if I list the advanced settings, here you can see all the settings, and from here you can do things like disabling expiry notifications for API keys, which looks like this. Okay, and yeah, we can even go as far as setting any non-compliant downloads to actually be allowed, like this. So say we have a company like Bibble Labs who are currently developing many internal projects. They've recently made the shift to microservices, breaking down their monolithic apps, and now have multiple teams working on different projects at the same time. So one of these projects, it uses NuGet, npm, PyPy, and universal packages, which is a package type developed by Inedo to store internal programs and app components. This project also has a dedicated resource folder for assets like PowerShell scripts, deployment templates, and config files. Bibble Labs is already using and managing ProGet. They just need to set up and configure feeds and an asset directory for this particular team. And while this is all possible in the ProGet UI, you'd be repeating that whole process for every feed type and then turning around and doing it all again for your approved feeds, right? Setting up an asset directory, building out the file structure, creating groups, and adding potentially hundreds of developers to them. It's going to be a lot of repetitive manual work, step after step of setup, configuration, repetition. It's all going to add up quickly and then becomes tedious to manage. So instead, we can use Pgutil in a script, turning all this setup into executable code. So yeah, we've got a script to automate this for us. So I've written it in PowerShell, but you can create Pgutil scripts executable in your org's tools. And this script is going to automate our setup for us. So here you can see the variables that I've set up. So of course our ProGet URL, the path to Pgutil, and all the new users that I'm creating. And there's a lot of those. So scroll through those and get to, yeah, here's the new feeds that I'm going to be creating. So NuGet, npm, Python, and I'll make the unapproved feeds for proxying packages and also some approved feeds for the vetted packages that devs can use. So you don't need to configure each of these manually. And Here's all of our OSS packages, of course, that we want to actually promote between those feeds. And then I'm going to be running some commands. So the first is to just add this instance as a source in Pgutil, and then I'm going to also create an API key. And then we're going to be creating the new group for this project. And yeah, here we're actually creating the users from those variables earlier and pulling them all in one go to the group. Here we're just creating our feeds and the connectors for any feeds that need those. And then it's going to take care of promoting the packages from the unapproved feeds to the approved feeds. So it just basically works through the list and promotes everything in bulk. And here, all of our universal packages, well, yeah, they're uploaded in bulk as well, but just from our machine, right? Not promoted. And finally down here, it's just setting up the asset directory and the file structure that we want all together, rather than treating everything as separate steps that you're going to need to manage in the UI. So this all changes how much manual effort is involved. You can see now that there's no need to repeat the same setup across multiple feeds, clicking through menus for each configuration and manually uploading and promoting packages. So yeah, now what I'm going to do is run this and give it a little bit of time to get everything up and running. And if I head back into ProGet and check this instance, we can see that the feeds were created successfully and that all of the packages were promoted. And in the universal packages feed, they were all uploaded. And yeah, we can also see that our new group was created and that all of the newly created members were added as well. So yeah, with Pgutil, it's pretty easy to manage your ProGet instance from the command line and even set up and configure instances automatically with scripting. And yeah, you can get started with Pgutil by taking a look at some of the tutorials I've linked below and start experimenting with commands today.